welcome to episode 4 of For Our Consideration. Today we are joined, as always, by the lovely Courtney. You actually got lovely this week, so make the best of it.
Thanks.
Usually it's just Courtney.
Courtney.
And we've also got the handsome Irish boy himself, Jerd the Nerd. How's it going?
What's the crack? Yeah, fingers guns, always.
We're here to talk about the kind of major release, the most kind of recent major Marvel release, which is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, right? Somebody pointed out, this is just something I've seen this morning. So they pointed out the abbreviation is MOM, Multiverse of Madness, and it's all about Wanda trying to get her kids back. So that's really interesting. I don't know if that was on purpose, but
the spoilers from the start.
I think it is. Well, we kind of know. I think going in, we kind of
I guess, yeah. Well, we didn't.
Wanda was then,
And then you know.
So, yeah, that's the other thing. Talk about spoilers. This will be a full spoiler cast. This will be getting uploaded sometime midweek in the coming week, the sort of second week in May. So the movie's been out for basically a full week at this point, by the time you hear this, roughly. So if you've not seen it yet,
why?
Go and see it and then come back and listen to this, because we're going to go into full spoilers pretty much from the start. Not all of it's going to be pure twist after twist, but we're going to kind of just not hold back, and there's not going to be any spoiler warnings for here on. So if you've not seen it, watch the film first and then come back to us. But yeah, so it was hugely kind of anticipated, I think, and it was very built up after kind of how successful and big No Way Home was. Everybody was kind of hyped for this as the kind of next major Marvel entry. I loved this movie. I didn't enjoy it in the same way that I enjoyed No Way Home, but I still really appreciated my time with it. What was your first impressions after seeing the film? We'll start with you, Court. What did you think when you came out the cinema?
I really enjoyed the film. I thought it did put a kind of different spin on it, but I think that's what you wanted going into this film. I don't think you wanted just something that strictly followed the exact same formula.
Yeah.
The fact that it's a Sam Raimi film, it really is a Sam Raimi film. The whole kind of horror element, I loved. I mean, it's not something that I think I would necessarily take any young kids to go see, because it could be quite scary, but yeah, I absolutely loved it. I think Elizabeth Olsen blew me away. She is unreal in this film. I absolutely loved it. And I get what you're saying with you not having the same kind of feels coming away from this as you did from No Way Home, but I think that's because No Way Home played so much on the nostalgia element for that film, whereas this was so fresh and so new. And I feel like with it being this whole new kind of phase of Marvel, it really felt like a new phase of Marvel, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I agree that Elizabeth Olsen was dynamite in the film. She kind of carried a lot of it. But yeah, it was definitely a Sam Raimi horror film that just happened to star Doctor Strange, which I really like personally. Jared, what did you think?
I enjoyed it when I first watched it, and then I was like, I have issues, because I always have issues with these films. And then I watched it, so originally I booked it for the Friday night. I booked it way back in start of April, I think it was, when the tickets first became available here. And then I was talking to a fellow guy I used to work with who loves these films. He's like, I should definitely go see it on Thursday night. And I caved, and I booked it for the Thursday night, but then I probably wouldn't have anyways, but I couldn't cancel my Friday tickets. So I was like, fuck it, I'll go 2 nights in a row. So first night, liked it, had some issues with it. Second night, thought I liked it more. Since then, I've been thinking about it, and I'm not really sure I liked it now. Right. I think the issues I have with it seem to kind of double. And again, I think it was weird because I kind of liked it when I first saw it, but I wasn't really fully sure I would know how to place it. And the second night, I was like, I think I like that more. But then the same things that always what happens to me when I watch these films is that my brain just starts picking them apart after a couple hours. And some of the issues I had with this, I've been talking about it with a few different people, and I don't know, there are reasons for some of the things that kind of pushed me back on and kind of changed my mind about them, but they didn't some of their arguments. So basically, I've been arguing with other people as opposed to also arguing with myself, and I haven't found enough to kind of defend it in the way. Like, I guess, I don't know, Spider-Man, and every time I have to mention it, it had Toby, Tom, and Andrew. So I really enjoyed that. I give that a lot. I gave that a lot of forgivenesses. That's not even a word. But with this, I don't know. It didn't have that quote of nostalgia, or that didn't have that. Grand scheme to kind of, I don't know, win me over as much. Well, I did enjoy it though too. I think there's some very good elements, but I just think the bits in it that I didn't like stick out a bit more.
We'll get to the issues in a wee sec, but I think first of all we should go over what we did like. I just loved the fact that this was I wasn't expecting a full blown Sam Raimi horror film set in the Marvel Universe. I was the kind of cynical part of my brain. So Scott Derrickson directed the first movie, big kind of horror director, made Sinister. He's doing that movie, The Black Phone.
Oh yeah.
Good filmmaker. He did the first Doctor Strange, and he was maybe doing the second one. And then for whatever reason, creative differences, I can't remember why, he left the production. And then that's when they drafted in Sam Raimi. And that was also around the time that the rumours about the multiple Spider-Men and No Way Home started. So the kind of correlation people kind of had in their heads was, oh, they're doing that. Sam Raimi's going to obviously go in and do Tobey Maguire in the Marvel Universe and blah, blah, blah. And I think predictions and theories went a bit mad online and stuff. But I think Sam Raimi, what was worried about, I love Sam Raimi's films. I love the Evil Dead movies. I love the trilogy up until Army of the Dead. I've not seen the TV show. But yeah, those three films are great, and I enjoy like Drag Me to Hell and there's other stuff. I even did Hate Was a Great Powerful. That was an okay film. This I didn't expect. There was a cynical part of me that was going in thinking this is just going to be a Marvel movie made by committee, the same as every other Marvel movie, and it's just going to have Sam Raimi's name slapped on it, and it's not going to actually feel like a Sam Raimi movie, because famously that's why Edgar Wright never got to direct Ant-Man, was because he wanted to do his own spin, and Marvel were like, no, this has to set up things and follow a certain formula and blah blah blah, and that's why Peyton Reed got brought in. So I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised that they actually just let a creator run wild and just make a balls out horror film within this universe. It does feel hugely inconsistent with the rest of the MCU, but I like it for that. I think that's a positive. I think some folk, probably maybe like Marvel hardcores and stuff, will take that as a negative. I really enjoyed that element of it, and I really thought it was refreshing. I would much rather see an original movie, even if it isn't perfectly consistent with the universe that's been set up. I would rather see a creative movie with insane shots where, like, yeah, there's shots in this movie where, like, spoilers at this point, I guess, characters look straight into the camera, like, right in the barrel of the lens. Yeah. People fight with the camera, like, see that, especially that scene at the end. Again, we're going full spoilers. At the end, where main Doctor Strange is in zombie Doctor Strange's body, but the real Doctor Strange is having that kind of, he's convulsing on the floor.
Yeah.
And Christine opens his eye, and when they basically, they're deadites. I can't remember what they're called in the movie, but they're basically deadites. Yeah. So one of them flies out, and Christine's fighting with it. Yeah. And you get that iconic Sam Raimi shot of, you're seeing it from the deadite soul thing's perspective, and you've got Rachel McAdams' screaming face, like, looking at the camera, while she's fighting, and that's just like Bruce Campbell Evil Dead. Like, that's just such an iconic Sam Raimi shot. And there's so many points in the movie like that it was just pure callbacks to, if you're a Sam Raimi fan, the kind of stuff you love, the Darkman movies and stuff. And like shots into the eyeball, that he loves that shot, going into somebody's eye, and then it kind of transitions into another scene.
Yeah, they've done that quite a lot.
But yeah, there's just so many callbacks, and kind of like, for me it was nostalgic in that way. It wasn't nostalgic in the way of like a superhero movie, but it was nostalgic for me, like horror movies growing up. It kind of brought me back to that. Because I watched Evil Dead movies when I was far too young. But yeah, I loved it. I loved how surprised. It's the first time in a long time I've been surprised watching a Marvel movie. Put it that way. Do you know what I mean? It was the first time in a long time I'm like, oh, they've went quite far. And again, we'll go into the kind of the kills and the kind of violence of it. But again, that surprised me how far they were willing to go with that. Because like you were saying, I would maybe say it's okay for teenagers, but anything younger than that, I don't know. I'd at least have to like be in. I wouldn't send like 2 10-year-olds to watch it themselves because they're going to have bad dreams. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is quite well. I guess it's a 12A, so it is for teenage and up. I guess that's the rating. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. So, do you guys have any major positives? Was there anything that you still think, holy shit, I'm really glad they did that?
I think just picking up off of what you said with comparing it to Edgar Wright not being allowed to do Ant-Man because it was building up, like that was the first phase, like that was building up to obviously that humongous kind of climax that was Endgame.
Yeah.
So I think in this second phase, I feel like we're going to have a lot more scope for things like that to happen, like Taika coming in and doing Thor and things like that. Like I feel like we're going to get. I mean, I know that with Ragnarok you got a lot of Taika's flair in that, but I feel like you're going to get even more
in Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder. So I feel like if that's the kind of road that they're going down, then I'm like down for it. But I think, I mean, I've said it before, but I think my main highlight for this film was Wanda Maximoff. Like, she was so completely different from how we've kind of seen her before. Like, you got maybe a taste of it in WandaVision, but she goes full blown psycho in this. And then the scene that really sticks out in my head is when Patrick Stewart, spoilers, is trying to pull other Wanda out of underneath the rubble and like the white space in her head, and the red smoke starts to come in, and I feel like that was so effective. And then it was probably my biggest jump scare was when like her hands like come out and snap his neck, and just those hands alone, like
and hands.
Her face, you can see her face is quite demonic at that point too.
I also that I love like minimalist shots and like see that shot where it was also the white space they were in, and then you had just that stark red smoke.
Just that red smoke.
Basically, it was just 2 colours on the screen, and then whatever clothes the characters were wearing. But
even that was quite neutral clothing because he was just in kind of dark turtleneck.
But that shot comes.
You had like the plain rocks. No, that really sticks out in my mind. I just loved how like again. I feel like Marvel hardcores might disagree, but I just loved how fresh it was. It was totally different. And then with the whole Illuminati and their deaths were brutal. Like when that man, like I can't remember the character's name, but he doesn't have a mouth.
Blackagon, Boltagon. Black Bolt,
It's Dr. Strange. How do you do it or something?
Yeah. So when
I wanted to interject there when you said Illuminati. Illumawati?
And like his head just like his brain just explodes in his head and his head caves in and you're like whoa. And that for me was when I was like,
that's just a normal Marvel movie.
Like here we go. And then obviously with like Reed Richards like getting turned into ribbons and his head goes literally pop, and like it's not Captain America but
Captain Britain, right?
Captain Britain, and she gets Captain literally cut in half with the shield. We're like, Jesus, and I don't feel like Captain Marvel's death was as brutal as theirs. I mean, she gets a rock falling on her, but like, oh my god! And I was like, yes, like let's go.
Somebody said
I nearly argue that Captain Marvel didn't die because she's so like our Captain Marvel is so powerful, and like when I was rewatching it, I made a point of trying to see. I thought Wanda like sucked her power away.
Right.
There was a weird because they were blasting and it was going around, but I don't think it was that. It was just a big explosion. But prior to that, she got the statue thrown at her through the wall, and then after that, she was like I guess powered down, but the wall fell on top of her. But does she need to have the power on to be invulnerable? I don't know. I could have argued that like I could have seen that as maybe she didn't die. But,
you can totally kind of see them bringing her back, I think.
You just touched on one aspect that I really liked was just how powerful and brutal Wanda was, because Wanda is one of the most terrifying and powerful characters within the Marvel Universe. Maybe not so much in the movies up until this point, but in the comics. But in this movie, she really felt like she stepped up her game in terms of like how her power level and stuff.
Yeah.
And seeing her there's just something. I said this to you after we watched it.
Yeah.
There's just something about seeing a pure, powerful character in their prime just ripping through every bit of people. Like see the way Darth Vader did in Rogue One, and I guess the Terminator does with like civilians when they try and stop him and stuff. That was the kind of vibes I got, especially that scene when they were running through the sewer.
Yeah,
or the tunnels.
and she's following
and she was
them.
following him and limping, and she was just like a demonic husk of a person.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Yeah, it was pure. Yeah, like
and the red eyes,
like an old slasher movie, like
and like all the blood coming from her feet, like, and like you really felt the character's desperation at that point, and like endurance, and I was there.
But that was also kind of the point where it was like, shit, there's no turning back for her. Like she might be irredeemable at this point. We'll get on the Illuminati scene in a minute, but Jerd, I just want to get your kind of general positive thoughts. What did you enjoy at this point? Thinking back, what were your positives?
Okay, I find it hard to talk about positives without bringing in negatives, but I'll try and stick it down the line. The opening, I kind of liked how it just started, and like I thought like that Defender Strange. I thought he might have been more of a character within the film. I thought he might have been interacting with regular Strange, but we were just banging those straight into that. I really enjoyed the New York scene because I think it's the first one of the like since maybe like Hawkeye a little bit, but I don't think they really played up to the New York as a character. But it's the first time since like Avengers 1 where a character is fucking around in New York. Like Spider-Man is traditionally a New York character, but he's been in Queens a bit, which is, I guess it's technically it is New York, but same state, but it's it's a little bit removed. It's not Manhattan or whatever, which is the vast majority of Marvel stories are set in Manhattan. But yeah, in this there was a lot of Manhattan. Like you got nearly, as some people were saying. So I always do this. I always look at like as soon as I see a film, I see like as many reviews as possible. Like it did kind of feel like Raimi's New York. Like there's the kind of octopusy thing climbing on the side of a building and that kind of thing. I really enjoyed Strange's use of magic at the start, in particular, and that's kind of that's go directly into it now. But that's maybe one of my issues with it is that his magic wielding wasn't as nicely spread out through the film. Because the first Doctor Strange, which I just rewatched during the week, it is just there's like a shield, a whip, and a thing that you can do these three things, but like no one else who's in the universe displayed any of this mad magic. But then in Infinity War, he does loads of random shit, and that was cool. And I think a lot of people really go, "Oh no, actually no, Doctor Strange isn't this kind of boring character." And then in this, he got to do a lot of that kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, I haven't read a lot of Doctor Strange. I've seen him appear in team books and stuff, but I'm not aware. But I'm aware that he is supposed to do that kind of magic stuff. And strangely, the magic he was doing at the start of that was kind of more in line with what the evil Doctor Strange was doing in What If, using all the different monsters and stuff. So that's the New York bit. I really like that. I thought the girl was good. I think her name is. I think she's actually a Mexican. And she's only really young. She shot this when she was 14, I think. I didn't think she was that young. And she looks young, but I thought her. I would like to see more. I think she gave a good performance at points. There's a bit where she gets drugged and she just. She really. It was really bad. I was like, ooh, that was rough. Like you could have given that another take. Or maybe a bit better direction. So that's New York thing. The Wanda's reveal was quite good. I didn't expect it. So I was talking to you about it earlier in the week, Dan. Your predictions thing. You mentioned that you spotted that in a previous trailer that when she's kind of doing her kind of evil talk to Strange, he's wearing the same clothes, so that's there. I didn't cop that at all. So I was happy. I kind of knew because the trailers were weird because at certain points in the trailer she looks bad. Like she has that speech, she's like, "Oh, when I do it," so I was like, "Well, she's a bad guy." But then there's bits where she's kind of squaring up with Wong to face off against them monsters, but then they bow to her. So there's bits where you're like, "Okay, is she teaming up with them or what? Or what's exactly is going on here?" But yeah, that was really good. Her performance was fantastic. the bit where she shows up at the Camertage, where she kind of just arrives behind your man. I heard some people try to say that was like the No More Mutants thing in the comics. I was like, it's not. It's I guess arguably framed in the same way, but that kind of, and then her like coming through the mirror. That sequence is really cool. She was like came in like a witch, and she's nearly doing the ring thing coming through.
Oh yeah.
But I still kind of felt that it went to like the laser shit too much, and I was just like, you kind of should like you've obviously learned that lesson somewhat since WandaVision. But I don't think it was as evenly spread out. But some of that stuff with her was fantastic. Like when she was taking over the other universes, Wanda, that stuff was really cool. We've seen it in other horror films where the picture just looks at you, and then like very I don't know psychedelic, where she's seeing like the ocean in the bowl kind of thing, and just that kind of imagery. Some of the musical stuff was fantastic. Like the music scene.
That was
Two
amazing.
Strangers. That was really cool. And other than that, Wong, I thought it was kind of cool. Like, he kind of like, he's a fucking, like, they've made him like, whereas in the comics, I'm assuming he's always just a stranger sidekick, but I haven't really read much of the comics. He's a fully fleshed character in these films. Like, even through Infinity War, he's not just a sidekick. He's a big supporting character in these films and in other films now. He's a well respected character, and the actor's great. I love Benedict Wong, which is actually his name. But and other than that, the Illuminati stuff, I thought it was a little bit mismatched for me. I felt it was very like Invincible, that death scene, where it just didn't. It felt different. It was cool to see. I was fucking annoyed they put so much in the trailers that there wasn't really any surprises for me going in, and then some prick put a thumbnail of a group shot of the Illuminati on YouTube on a trailer that didn't even include that image, so he just put it in for no reason. And I just purposely uninstalled Instagram and Twitter so I wouldn't get spoilers, but YouTube people were just fucking that was really bad. And even now, like 2 days since it's out or whatever, there's thumbnails everywhere just ruining the whole film. And the zombie strange thing was cool. I didn't know exactly how that was going to play out with the dead body. And I'm sorry, I'm going to go through everything, but I'm just trying to think of the things that are positive and keep it at that for now. The Illuminati was cool. The X-Men team on the Xavier's entrance was pretty good. But geez, he looks so old. Like I thought they aged him up a lot for Logan, but really not that much, because I know it's 5-6 years later now, probably since that was shot, but he looked his age. Like he looked very feeble, I thought, in that. Well, not people age, that's what they do, but you could really sense his age. There was something a little bit, I don't know. Same with you see your parents and you've noticed they've aged a bit, and you're like, oh. But yeah, I'll keep it there, because other than that, I've just got negatives, I think, to attack it with.
Again, you touched on a couple of things there that I really enjoyed. One of my favourite scenes that was like a straight up horror movie scene was that scene where Wanda does the dream walk and she goes into her other body, and that scene where you can see the kind of innocent Wanda that she knows something's wrong, and she kind of stumbles into the kitchen, and like the way that photo was looking away and it looked right at her as she went past, like that's again so Sam Raimi horror. The literal storm in a teacup, which is also like a metaphor for like shit's coming, like bad shit's coming. You got the storm in a teacup with the waves, and then that scene where she was on the other side of the glass, and then she like grabbed her through the glass. It was just classic horror. I loved that. I really enjoyed. I enjoyed Wanda all through the movie. Like the Camertage scene was great. I really enjoyed Benedict Wong all through the film. I think he's phenomenal. I really enjoyed the big monster at the start, the big octopus thing, like the Cyclops with the Gigantus or something. Cool, just big eyeball. It was pretty cool. And I just the zombie strange thing as well. Like that was just the point where it was like, wait, we're going full Sam Raimi goofy horror. Like even had that scene of the hand coming out the bricks. Like a classic zombie hand. And at that point, it was like, right, this doesn't even feel like a Marvel film anymore. But as a
focus.
I feel like
it looked so much like.
I feel like when I was watching it, I thought in the back of my mind, this might be the point where people are turned off. People don't like this. But I love that moment. I love that moment of strange emerging from that zombie strange emerging from that grave, and it was just, oh, we're just going full balls out horror. Like there's no airs and graces about it anymore. It's not like, oh, it's a Marvel film with horror elements. It was like, no, this is a proper kind of cheesy horror film. I loved it. We can. I don't know. Do you want to go into negatives, or do you want to discuss? I kind of want to go into detail on the Illuminati scene and each death and stuff.
But I just wanted to say I like the use of the kind of more well-known actors, because when you see a well-known actor in a film, you go, oh, they're going to be in this for like the long haul. But with the use of Sheila Atom in the Camertage scene,
her death was horrible.
Yeah, when she stabs
that book.
That called.
Yeah,
and when she stabs the book in
the Darkhold,
and she burns alive.
Is it Benedict Wong's watching her as she like melts alive and turns to ash?
Like she just cries, and you're like, of course. So she's most recently been in Bruised, and she gives a great performance in that film. But oh my god,
I didn't know.
She crisps up and then just melts away.
Again, that was like imagery that I was like, oh, if the future I'll be watching this, that would get you like that was really horrible to watch. Somebody just burn alive.
That was pretty full on, yeah. What was I say? I was like nearly surprised. I was expecting, I guess, because it's the Raimi films I've watched the most. Is the Spider-Man films. It was very little. Bar obviously the little horror elements that are sprinkled through that. It just feels like far more Evil Dead. Like it's more the heart of Raimi than there is. Like, I was expecting, I was guessing maybe some little snippets of Spider-Man isms. But I didn't really feel anything that was too familiar to that, apart from maybe the setting of the first New York scene. But it felt way more Evil Dead. 100%. Very interestingly, the local art house cinema in Dublin, they sometimes do retrospectives, and from what I gather, they always ask people to visit Euroconnect to the films. And I watched the Evil Dead films recently, but I was never like obsessed with them as a kid or anything. But a friend of mine is obsessed with them. I was like, oh, go to it. Like, oh, I fucking have seen them before. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, whatever. And then fucking Bruce Campbell like just showed up to the opening screening of Evil Dead 2, but the cinema didn't even know until like they'd asked him, but they didn't know he was going to show up until like half an hour beforehand. So they're doing the Raimi retrospective because this is out. And he showed up to the premiere. I was like, I'm not the biggest Evil Dead fan, but I was like, if I was, like, that would have been a pretty cool fucking treat to go and see that. Like, oh, I just go see this film I really like in the cinema, and then fucking Bruce Campbell's here. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so it felt more Raimi. Yeah, like definitely by the end of it, and like Stephen Strange doing the talking through the corpse thing. Like, there's what's the character's name in the Evil Dead films?
Ash.
Ash. All right. Hal Ashby is what I was going to say. Hal, I think. I don't even know. I can't even think who Hal Ashby is. But yeah, there's bits because he is a zombie in that, and it felt very similar to that.
Yeah. And the scene, obviously, where Doctor did the cameo for Bruce Campbell and Doctor Strange puts his spell on him to start picking himself up. There's also that famous scene in Evil Dead where he's fighting with his own hands.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why he cuts off the hand and puts the chainsaw on. That's...
See, I've never seen
that.
I didn't think it was a great cameo. I would have preferred him to show up as another universe Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I was expecting him to be more an important character, but then the hand thing happened, and I was like, oh, it's an Evil Dead reference, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I felt, not to get too much into the negatives just yet, but I felt a lot of, especially like that was one point where I noticed the first, a lot of the shots just felt very, like, when he first shows up, you don't, like, he's on screen, but you don't clearly see him for a second. Like, the shots are very, the way they're framed. And I don't know if that was really like, oh, it's kind of like a reveal, because you can kind of tell it's him at first, but he doesn't get like that's clearly him in the first shot. Like, he's in it, but I just don't think it's framed in a way that your average cameo would be. It's like, you can see him in the shot, you can tell it's him, but I don't think he's given like I don't know, he's putting a pedestal kind of thing in the first shot. I kind of thought some of the shots, And that's kind of what I think about this in comparison to the Raimi films, especially the first two Spider-Man films. Marvel films, I think Marvel films in general, apart from maybe Infinity War and Endgame, some of these films I don't think, because they have to have another film out in the next couple of months, they're not given. So, like when you have Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 by Raimi, they were probably like, they make the first one, they probably have X amount of time to do that, but they don't have another film, like even if it's not a direct sequel to that film, they have another Marvel film that's coming out in a couple of months, so that has to be going by a certain target. I think they're kind of, it feels like with a lot of Marvel films, it feels like they're very rushed with the amount of time they actually have to get footage shot. It feels like some of the shots are like, I feel like a film that wasn't racing to get out would maybe give another take to that scene or to that shot, or it feels like some of the shots are just like, okay, we got that shot, let's go, keep moving.
Well, we'll move on to, I think we'll just move on to the negatives now, but I think one thing that really, I'll go into kind of more negatives later for me, but one thing that really kind of, you just brought up actually that really stood out is the contrast between shots. Like, I feel like the cinematography in this film, there's some really grandiose kind of Marvel type shots that are just really epic and kind of comic booky and grand in scale, and then there's also very like kind of indie, low budget feeling shots, and obviously that's intentional because of the filmmaker Sam Raimi is, but there was a bit of a contrast at certain points. I thought, like you're saying, Jerd, I don't know, there was certain points that scene again. Although I really enjoyed that scene where innocent Wanda in the other universe gets possessed by evil Wanda. It went from being really kind of like traditional Marvel cinematography to very Sam Raimi cinematography quite abruptly, and I did notice, I was conscious of that. I was like, hell yeah, we're getting a Sam Raimi film, so that kind of like forgave it for me. But I can see if you are a massive Sam Raimi fan, you might think, well, that's a bit jarring to go right for that kind of traditional Marvel.
I think there could also be an argument made though that it was quite a lot of it, because I do agree some of it was quite jarring, but I also feel like that could have been intentional, because I don't think you're supposed to at all feel comfortable during this film. It's supposed to feel like
a bit off.
Oh, right, okay, where you kind of have to sit back and feel a bit uncomfortable for the majority. Not even just from a horror element.
It makes you uneasy.
Like, from a viewer element, it does make you feel almost kind of in a better way, because I don't like it, but like when you have like the Blair Witch Project with that kind of moving camera movement, that's made to make you feel sick. It's made to make you feel uncomfortable. So I feel like
the first person,
this is also so disjointed, because you are going through different universes. So if you were actually going through different universes, you would feel really disjointed. You'd be like, what is going on?
That's a good point. And I guess it also kind of plays on the idea that we've seen so many Marvel movies at this point and we're so comfortable with the formula that they are like comfortable movies.
They're luring you into that false sense of security.
Yeah, you have an expectation of what it's going to look like and what it's going to feel like. So when they kind of pull the rug under you and surprise you, I guess that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I feel like the kind of messiness, even though it was still messy, it was kind of intentional.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if it wasn't intentional, you're welcome, and you're welcome for receiving your movie. But
you should be a PR guy.
No, we meant it. You know, like that purpose.
Well, when she's being possessed and the camera's in first person, it's kind of hiding around. I think that really works. And then she looks at when she possesses her alternate self.
Yeah.
She
almost looks at the camera as if to say, "I'm here now."
Like,
yeah. There's a couple of that, and then some of the, I guess the composition shots where it's like it's coming in over, like one I thought was really awkward. It was Wong.
The Wong, I loved that transition.
When just Wong is just like his head is like whatever.
When they first go to the 838 universe, the other universe where the red means go. When they first go there, and Mordo's giving them the tea and explaining things, see that montage again. Did not feel like a consistent with a Marvel movie at all. It pure felt like
drugness.
No, but even before that, that scene too, when the scene kind of hazy. But I mean, even before that, like Wong was giving him an explanation of, I can't remember what it exactly was he was explaining, but he's explaining the multiverse. I think in the idea of
Mordo.
Yeah, Mordor, that was it. That Wong.
They're
Mordor, sorry.
talking about the books. They're talking about
That's it.
Darkhold and the Book of
You
Ashanti.
had this kind of like the Danny Elfman score going, and you had this interesting editing where like it was a lot of split screen and.
Or explain the dead walking or dream walking.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, that kind of guitar.
But it was a bit again jarring, but I really enjoyed it.
It's a bit like because I guess I didn't. You to remind me, I didn't realize that. Well, it was only when I seen the credits that Danny Elfman does the score for this. I kind of didn't realize it, but that really particular scene when it shows Wanda levitating and such, and it's a bit. The sounds of it are very similar to the Spider-Man montage when he's designing the suit in the first one and like looking at the cards. And I didn't realize Danny Elfman was on the Mark Maron podcast, and when you hear a name like Danny Elfman, you think of like Hans Zimmer, this older guy who's like a composition or whatever, but he's like a proper fucking rock star, like.
Oh yeah.
Listen to him, huh? Coachella Gatti was like topless and he's like covered in tattoos.
Yeah.
And, like, listen to the Maron interview, like he's like a stoner, he's a proper like hippie rock star. I just assumed like he was more of like a guy in a turtleneck, fucking composing classical musicians, but he's like a fucking proper rock star kind of musician.
Both. That's the thing. He is. I've always said about Elfman. People love him or hate him because some of his scores are a bit. I think he suits certain films. For example, Spider-Man movies, and for this movie, he's perfect. I think and for Tim Burton movies, he also did the score for like Edward Scissorhands and stuff.
And he sings the like Nightmare on Elm Street. Like he doesn't voice.
He does a voice of
Jack.
For the Nightmare Before Christmas,
It's perfect for that kind of thing, but he has been also used. I think it was a point maybe 10, 15 years ago where he loved that film.
I love that. That's my favourite.
But he kind of blew up and he kind of became in demand, I think, and he started getting drafted into a lot of big Hollywood movies that I don't really think he was suited for. And I think that put quite a lot of people off, and people are always like, oh, Danny Elfman. For a while there, people were like, oh, it was as if, you get stuck with Danny Elfman because Hans Zimmer's busy kind of thing, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's really downplaying how talented the guy is because he is so diverse, and again, he can sing, play guitar, he can play any instrument, he can compose. And I think in this movie, I really felt his presence. I felt like it was so influential. And we mentioned earlier when we were talking about positives, that scene where he was doing the music fight, where the two strangers had the music fight. I could picture Danny Elfman and Sam Raimi in a room together. This would be a brilliant idea, and then coming up with it together and composing it and.
Well, I think it's
I can see the creative process.
That actual music is like back or something. From watching, I was watching a breakdown thing, and so I guess maybe Elfman still played it, but it's more that's a classical piece of music they edit.
It's an adaptation. It's an adaptation of a classical piece. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Beethoven piece.
Yeah, I think it's Beethoven
as well. It was a Beethoven symphony.
Yeah. I wanted. I can't remember exactly. It's like a particular piece. So I guess in my mind. If it is like a Beethoven piece and it's in a film, does the composer for that film redo that piece? And then I guess it has to be edited.
Yeah. I think in this case,
make it work into the story.
Because there's certain parts where the notes get distorted and the notes get used in a sort of way that makes it different from the original. Do you know what I mean? It's like how on YouTube.
They're not just going to get a copy of the thing and then separate it.
You can't just upload a clip of a movie, but if you upload a clip of a movie with you speaking over it and it gets past copyright, it's the same thing. If you put your own spin on it and sort of give your own version of it, then it's.
Try to see if I can see
I do still think Beethoven was credited at the end. When the songs came up, I think it was still credit, but it's definitely a kind of semi-original piece based on the classic composition. I think we kind of talked that part of death. Do you want to move on to sort of the things you didn't like so much? Because I think, Jerd, you've got a wee bit of a laundry list of things. We'll start with you and then we'll go backwards and I'll go last.
Multiverse Madness. They go to a universe and a half. No, sorry, they go to a universe and a house. A barren landscape. I don't know. I was I've been discussing this with a few people since, and oh well. No Way Home didn't go to many universes, or Into the Spider-Verse didn't go to many universes, but neither of those are called Multiverse of Madness, and they feature as much, if not more, characters from different universes. We only see 3 Stranges, one at the very start, original one, and the evil one.
And then the one at the start comes back as a zombie one.
Yeah.
Or his body is used.
Yeah.
The only other universe they go to, I hated the look of. I thought it was like a poor version of the Back to the Future. It just looked. I just didn't like the design. It was like everything looked weird. Like, and then like a friend of mine was like, "Oh well, they show more in that snippet at the start when they travel." I was like, "That's nothing. Like that's not really a multiverse. Like especially like not that I've seen it, but everywhere all things. Oh, jeez, whatever it's called. Everything all at once. Everything all at once. There's another multiverse, art house multiverse film.
Yeah.
But which I gather they feature more multiverses and the concept of a multiverse. Especially if you put multiverse in the title, you expect to see some element of the multiverse, not the universe and a house. Like that's all.
Yeah.
And there wasn't even like an insane amount of different versions of characters. That's why I think like that scene where they're traveling. I would be more interested if Wanda was chasing them through multiple universes, which is what I thought was going to happen. I thought that's what we like when there were like people were saying, "Oh, there's reshoots and there's going to be loads of cameos." I thought she'd be jumping into different universes. Like, fair enough, you have to give them one to get set up in, but like,
like one main one.
Well, or like it has to come at a certain point. But she should have been chasing them through other universes. I feel like it, like,
touching on that, I heard before that again. It was a spoiler-free review, but somebody did mention that it's. Remember the first Wreck-It Ralph movie where they only really went into two different games? Like, it was only really like Ralph's game, the racing game, and then the alien kind of Halo type game. And again, at the time, people were a bit disappointed by how kind of limited that was, and I guess focused that was. I heard the same thing said about this, so I actually thought we were only going to see the main universe, so like the main Marvel universe, and one other universe. So I thought it was quite a pleasant surprise that we saw two other universes plus a wee bit of the so you've got the scene, you've got the main universe, right? Then you've got the scene that they fly through the brick face and the paint and all that stuff, which is obviously very brief. And then you've got the kind of futuristic Back to the Future universe, where and then you've got the kind of dilapidated universe where I did love again another cameo where they're walking down the street and you've got the Oldsmobile for the classic Evil Dead films. There's the car that's floating through there. There's a car.
Sam Raimi's dad's car.
Yeah,
Uncle Ben drives it in Spider-Man, and I think it's the main characters in Drag Me to Hell. Use the same car. So that's pretty good. But like, I still think you did only really get one universe because a house doesn't count as a universe. And I was like, oh, but it's barren. I was like, well, okay, well, that's not really a universe then.
Why is the house still there?
But we also get a part in the main universe, so does that not count as one?
No, because you're starting.
It's a multiverse. It's
still a part of the multiverse. Like, I would still count it. I'd still say that's one.
But then you would count. Oh well, this like Spider-Man Far From Home. He's in one. We got one universe in this film. That doesn't count. The starting point doesn't count as a universe.
Okay.
No. You really only gotta honestly for what we saw. It like okay, it's barren and that's a part of that universe, but we saw a house in that universe really, and we saw one other. They went to one other universe that I didn't like. So like I was kind of saying, it's like the point of No Way Home is that people come to this universe and it's a single accident accident that causes that. You don't have a character who, whether they can manually control it or not, have the ability to travel more than one universe. And we didn't go to any others. And I know you have to spend a certain amount of time to do whatever, but like apparently the film was supposed to be 240 at one point. To be put down. I still don't think if it was 240 we would have seen any other universes. But like just going to one universe, and then even like I know it's spoiled for me, but like John Krasinski being Mr. Fantastic, I'm like, it's kind of like that thing where definitely mentioned on an earlier pod is when you see fan casting for so long, they're probably not going to do it, and I guess they probably shouldn't if they just fan casting for that long because he just looked like the Photoshop of him, and it was just kind of like, yes, it was spoiled for me when I was like, it seems kind of weird that they just gave us that for the sake of it. like it, you know, if it was someone different being like the idea of because it wasn't banded around as much and people were guessing it, but the Tom Cruise being
Iron Man, Superior Iron Man.
Superior Iron Man would have been more interesting because that was. It was kind of like there was slight talk of Leonardo DiCaprio appearing as a Spider-Man in No Way Home because he was supposed to play him at one point.
Yeah,
That's a little bit more interesting. But when we've seen this Photoshop for months, like years now, of John Krasinski and Mr. Fantastic, when he actually was Mr. Fantastic, I was like, okay, well, like there's no surprise there really. Again, it was spoiled for me beforehand, but it was like maybe if some prick hadn't put it as a thumbnail on a YouTube video, I would have had more enjoyment out of it there. But yeah, it's just we went to one in a house, the universe in a house, and the universe we went to was pretty boring. Or not boring. It was just I just didn't like the look of it. It's just like meh. Some of the shots even with Xavier that is kind of like so the one universe we did go to and going with the negatives. There's a bit where he goes like, and it looks like one of those memes. Sorry, I'm trying to do the point. It looks like that meme. There's a certain meme of Picard from the Star Trek thing where he has a weird face on him. It looked very kind of like, oh. One thing I did like was when he, even though it seemed a bit cheesy because he didn't really do it in the X-Men films as much, where he does this.
Yeah.
And the waves start coming from his head to kind of dictate like how Xavier's mind powers are shown in the comics and in the cartoon. But it's funny because when I was watching that in the film, I went to see it both times I went to see it, the cinema screen has like a ripple at the bottom. Right. So both times that happened, it drawn my eye to that, and I couldn't stop. The fucking cinema screen just has this kind of like warpness at the bottom of it. I was like, fuck yeah. So both times it spotted it out for me. Captain Carter, again, shouldn't have been in the fucking trailer. I would be more interested if it was. Shouldn't have been in the poster. Like, I think they should have completely buried the Illuminati. Like, show the other universe stuff and maybe have some other universes so you can show some other stuff. Like, even if there was other Doctor Stranges, which I don't think we've seen the one who was using the Darkhold. Like, show a couple more, like, have a couple of more Stranges in the film. Have a couple of other characters. Like, even do some of the things that Loki did with, because it was the same writer as this guy, I think it's Michael Waldron. Which is, I think it's an Irish name. In my hometown, a guy I went to school with is like, I think he's a doctor now, but his parents' family, there's like 11 of them, and they were in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the most doctors in one family. So it's like all of his uncles and like they're all doctors. But anyway, Waldron, because they're called Waldron. But it's the same, like, at least in Loki, there was more, like, different actors playing different versions of Loki. We didn't see anyone who wasn't, and, like, you know, when you see No Way Home, it's different. There's a different element to that. Sorry?
I did think that myself. I thought you were going to see other people as... I also thought you were going to see other people as Wanda. Like, I had a wee hunch that we were maybe going to get the Olsen twins in as
I've heard a lot of people saying that.
Yeah.
And we didn't, and I was like, oh, okay.
You can just get one of them, though. What was it?
Like old-looking wonders.
Yeah, well, there is something about... I think it's from the comics, which I think they kind of, like, mentioned in WandaVision, but they didn't actually... Wanda is, like, in the comics, I think Wanda is supposed to be a constant in the universe. Like, there's always a Wanda, and she always looks exactly like that. But I guess when you bring it to live action, it's different because different actors play the characters. Like, if it was a comic book, one Doctor Strange could be half robot, but he'd still be drawn the same way in the face. But I guess sometimes they do have, like, a female version, or they do, you know, they could have a black version or thing, but in the comics, I guess they generally look like them. They look more like the same character. It's not so much that they'd... Which I think I mentioned when we were talking about Spider-Man is like, I guess it's a different sperm and a different egg. so it looks like a different person, and their parents were a different sperm and a different egg, so it looks like a different person. So kind of make it. You don't have the same actor, and you can have both. You can have someone who looks exactly the same, but someone who looks different. Yeah, I just thought that Bruce. I really feel heart to heart that Bruce Campbell cameo should have been another Doctor Strange, and it should have been. I don't know. Maybe instead of that fight with the Illuminati, they're fighting in some multiversal place, and someone is thing is bringing in heroes from different multiverses. But I guess they're just getting slaughtered fighting Wanda. But maybe Doctor Strange is able to manipulate her powers in such a way that he's able to bring in people, and it's kind of literally a little bit reminiscent of the Portal scene where it's just like. But then I guess you have to introduce those characters and why they have to fight this Wanda. If you're just bringing in people to be slaughtered by Wanda, but they could, I don't know, they could have worked that around some way better. I think. Was there some scene? Was it Doctor Strange? Or was the evil Doctor Strange is bringing in the zombies to fight Wanda zombie in the... Or at the end, the conclusion of What If, there's the bit where they bring in the zombies from the zombie universe just to be thrown at someone. Yeah, I think they really should just focus on the... it's a bit Age of Ultron where it's it's 2 weeks. You're just using the title from the comics, or Multiverse of Madness isn't a title from the comics, but they should have. I really feel they should have played up the multiverse side of it more. The Multiverse of Madness. Again, it's not really. It's Wanda, and again, further, it wasn't Agatha all along. It was Wanda all along. Again, the need to make a second version of that song that is accurate. Yeah. That's some. I'm just venting a little. That's just a little bit of the.
Do you feel
kind of. I kind of what was it? The bit where Wanda's trying to get into people's heads to get into Camertage. I'd be like, yeah, I just let her in straight away. She's she's bae. What was the thing? Oh yeah, Wong sacrificing again. They do it where they've done it before, sacrificing potentially the entire multiverse to save 5 people.
Yeah,
that's just you've already kind of done that in our Captain America's line from Endgame Infinity War. We don't sacrifice lives. You fucking should, and that's smart. That's the responsible thing to do. I think keep having something that stupid occur in the films. They need to start working that into their writing more because, I know it's they're kind of into kids, but write it in such a way where the character isn't put in that position where they'd make a stupid decision to save 5 randomers.
But I would argue though that the point there is that they're superheroes, but they're still people and they aren't perfect. The objective correct decision would be to let those people die, but they're people and they don't want to watch their friends die, and that is the affability of the hero. That's the dilemma that the response. When you've got that sort of responsibility on your shoulders, that's a dilemma that you face, and not being strong enough to do that, I think, is possibly as interesting. Rather than something that's just cold and just, oh, this is right. I guess that's kind of what Civil War's about. It's about the 2 different ideologies behind it. But I don't know. I don't necessarily hate a dumb decision being made if there's an emotional reason for it. Sometimes I don't know.
Strange seems okay with it. In Infinity War, I know you kind of didn't bite the bullet on it, but he was straight to Doctor Strange or to Iron Man and Spider-Man. You'll both die if it means saving the universe or whatever.
So again, I think that's an arc, for Doctor Strange. Although you might, I guess it depends on your own perspective, but if you might see it as him regressing, I would see it as him progressing, because here's this kind of nonchalant surgeon, huge ego, blah blah blah. He's willing to doesn't know Tony Stark, Peter Parker, he's willing to then let them die if it means saving the multiverse, the universe. But he's grown as a character, which is why at this point, when Lassie, America Chavez, he puts his neck on the line for her through this whole film, even though the Doctor Stranges in other universes don't and just steal her power, he's willing to fight and possibly die and put his life on the line because he's learned since Infinity War, and he's grown a bit as a character.
Yeah, I
That's
think
kind of how I take
the
it.
original Doctor Strange, like when you see him in the first film, like
Before the snap.
before the snap and before he's had the full experience with everyone, I think he would have just been like, yeah, well,
Yeah, it's
just
one
let her die.
like, who cares? Yeah.
But yeah, I think it just shows, and I think they touch on that with like Christine, like with Rachel McAdams, and how she thinks
Realises that he is different for the rest of the strangers.
Yeah.
I did see a thing from like let's give them credit because I had to cut off certain other Easter egg people because they just infuriated me so much. I won't say they were, but they were making breakdown videos for Moon Knight, and every like 5 times a video, this reflection means it represents the fractured psyche of Moon Knight, and it's like they said it for every time there was a fucking reflection in the. I was like, oh my god, shut up! And I just like out of it. Like I didn't even want to just like send him an angry message. You should like stop fucking saying that. It's oh my god. Like, this means the fraction, and then like these reaches that were like, no, it fucking doesn't. You're just saying. This other guy who sometimes says things that are reaches too, but New Rockstar has made some great points. In the Book of Ashanti, apparently before it burns up, before Wanda burns it up, there's a star there.
Right.
So his like, which could be a reach, but I liked it anyway. He was saying that Strange, because that Book of Ashanti is supposed to give the power to give the wielder exactly what they need to beat whatever. The star, so she's the point of that. So he just like, I know they don't actually say it, but so that's why it's a bit of a reach by your man. But I was like, it is within her to do that. I don't think they really explained that very well. Like, I'm not saying that exactly, but him going, "Oh, just believe in yourself," like that was a bit of a risk. But what's the point of sacrificing trading a life or not trading a life for her if the threat that is faced by not sacrificing her life kills everybody? That's not good logic. And same with like trading a life. So in Infinity War, it's like not killing Vision so that Thanos doesn't. But by not trading him, you're risking everybody's life.
But I'm not saying America. I'm not saying like let America die, but I'm saying the Defender Strange at the start movie begins to steal her power. That would be the logic, that Doctor Strange is like that, because without the power, the real acid doesn't matter. Basically, if I can just suck the power and use it, then she dies. Like, it's not a big deal. That's the difference between main Strange and all the other Stranges.
And I think the kind of main, just touching on what you'd said there, how Vision, they sacrifice Vision to save everyone, but then look at what that's done. Like,
the butterfly effect.
With her, as she says, like in the film, like she blows a hole through the head of the man that she loves. That then drives her completely insane. So then that then leads to all this other fighting. Whereas if they could have taken a different approach and not have killed Vision to try and kill Thanos, which didn't work anyway.
But it could have made it harder for Thanos. And like, say the thing with Wong, she wouldn't have known what to do. She wouldn't have been able to get to them without the Darkhold. And he sacrificed those 5 people to, like, how many people did she kill in the other universe? 5 people, pretty much, the Illuminati. So it's like, I just switch it over, like, and put it on someone else as opposed to thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's not so much that. I just think they could write it so much that it doesn't make the characters have to make like. I'm trying to think. But if that's something that she needs to be able to, like, that just makes the woman who just sacrificed herself to kill the Darkhold, makes her sacrifice worthless.
Yeah.
For 5 other people, where it could have like cut Wanda off right there. I don't know. I guess if anything, it just brought Wanda over to the other universe to allow her to attack other people.
Do you have any negatives, Scott?
I think my only kind of main negative also kind of comes from the whole Illuminati scene, So, like, when Doctor Strange in America get to that 838 universe, and you've got the big statue of Strange, and it's here he is sacrificed himself to defeat Thanos. I thought that was then the equivalent of Iron Man doing it. So I was saying it wasn't Tom Cruise because I hate Tom Cruise, but I thought we were then going to get this universe's Iron Man, and I was buzzing off that. I was like, oh, Doctor Strange died so that Iron Man didn't have to die, and then I had that kind of going in my head, was that the one reality that he's seen, or was there a reality that he's seen that he died in it and he just chose to not die and let Iron Man die instead? But then we didn't get an Iron Man, and then we just got Patrick Stewart explaining like, oh, we just killed him because Darkhold and everything still kind of unfolded the same.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a bit shit.
They kind of made it a bit stupid, but I think the point of Doctor Strange they're now calling, so it's a big comic book nerd thing of calling the MCU the 616, because the 616 is the comics universe.
Yeah.
But I think Kevin Feige jokingly calls this the MCU then 199 or something. So people have taken that as being what it meant. And then strangely, another breakdown was like, that's what Mysterio called it when he was lying in Far From Home. So he just by fluke was right when he did that. But Strange in Infinity War, I kind of the impression was he was looking into possible futures from their reality. As opposed to, like, so that's the starting point that we're from that reality we're branched out. And then, like, in the What If with Doctor Strange, there's a constant that Christine has to die, but that's only in that reality and branching realities. Like, and he's going back in time, but it's on that reality. And maybe there's a subsection of realities where that has to happen. That's a constant where that has to happen. What I thought was funny was they used the book of... So, at first I thought they don't have Avengers, they just have the Illuminati. But they clearly have a Fantastic Four, and they call Peggy the first Avenger.
Yeah.
I think they just elected not to show the other Avengers. But there must have been another Avengers, I think, because maybe they just use that phrase for Peggy, the first Avenger. But like, then I'm assuming you had other Avengers. You clearly have a Fantastic Four, and you clearly have an X-Men. So, and Inhumans, I guess. But what was it? I thought it was funny how they used the Book of Ashanti to kill Thanos, but I didn't cop it the first time I watched it. But Thanos is just there in the side of that shot with his own sword jammed into him. So your magic was just to jam the sword into his chest. And they didn't go for the head.
No.
Clearly killed by his own thing. So, like, in Marvel Comics, so if you may not be aware, they have this thing called a no prize. Where from the comics, if you spotted a plot hole but could explain it and wrote into the letters page of a comic, you would actually get sent out a no prize, which is just a blank envelope with nothing inside it. It's just like, because we're arguing for stuff that is just down to poor writing and inconsistencies or whatever. Like, so, like, I guess it's your head canon can make it better, but I only thought of that they didn't go for the head. Thanos seems to just be killed by getting his own sword put into his chest. But maybe something else. Maybe that was already in him because the sword looked maybe he already got that chest wound and there's something else that killed him, or the Book of Ashanti just, I don't know, killed him.
Snapped him, basically.
Yeah,
and then I have a very annoying trait where, like, if I'm watching a film and then in my head I can kind of come up with an alternative way that the film kind of doesn't have to exist. Like, so when she was trying to, like, she was obviously going to look for her sons, and Doctor Strange was like, oh, and what happens to their mother? And I'm kind of like, well, if there's all these universes where our sons exist, is there not a universe that something has happened to her and the sons need a mother? Why can't I just go to that one and get the orphan sons? Why do she have to kill another version of herself? But then we wouldn't have a film. So
and what I thought was kind of strange is just no mention of Vision.
No, not at all. I thought that was weird as well. And then
no mention or no universe where he's in it at all.
They did mention that she's she split his head open for no reason.
But there's not a mention of him in any other universe.
Or that she's looking for him in any universe.
Sure.
And he doesn't appear in any other universe. If she's so obsessed with the kids, she doesn't look for him too.
No, she just looks for the kids.
Surely she can find a universe where she died.
And just go to him. That's exactly what I thought. Just go to Vision and go to her kids, and then they have a Wanda, and she has a family.
Yeah. Well, yes, same thing. You don't have a story then. But like, if you, it's the same way I kind of noticed where in No Way Home, they have the other, like, don't have it in the script where the other Spider-Mans are talking about Uncle Ben, and it's been led to believe that this Peter Parker has an Uncle Ben, but he just, I'm not going to mention anything about that. I'm just going to, like,
he's in the cupboard under the stairs.
Yeah, because it's just like, you've alluded to there being an Uncle Ben just by, so, they, like, it's one thing that they have issues like that, but then they bring it that close to being like, you're bringing it that close. But I actually, very randomly, I was watching Dark Fate last night. Right. Terminator Dark Fate, and it's revealed, spoiler for a film from like 4 years ago, not even a big spoiler, but Arnie Terminator, different Arnie Terminator, that actually the de-aging in that film was fan-fucking-tastic. Some of the best I've seen, and it's about 3 years old. But the Arnie of that film, who did what he did at the start of the film, then goes and settles down, has a wife, but then Linda Carter just goes like, and she doesn't realize you weigh 400 pounds. And he's like, oh, we don't have a physical relationship. I was like, okay, kind of, but you don't have to be like riding someone to realize that they break a bed when they sit on it, or break a couch when they sit on it. Like, you don't just have to be physically touching someone. And like, she does hug him and stuff. It should still be more apparent. You could just say, look, I told her I'm a robot or whatever. I don't know.
And like, surely when it comes to like the ceiling of your upper floor in your house, you would be like, wait.
You can't go upstairs in this old wooden house that we've gone away to for a weekend away, or we can't go on. My car doesn't physically weigh down by him sitting on the other side of it.
You always have to take the stairs.
Oh, stop, yeah. So, like, that was a film where they kind of addressed it, but it's still, their addressing of it was, like, just weak. Can't sit in any furniture. And why are Terminators so fucking indestructible anyway? Like, they're just robots. What kind of man they made of adamantium? And even still, like, they're so, like, like, we see this, we see Ultron bots just being ripped apart like ribbons. And the Ultron bots, they didn't kind of mention them, so they've went as far as to call them Ultron, or the robots themselves, like, we are Ultron, or whatever the fuck they say. But they, like, in the comics, Ultron is made by Hank Pym, but they don't allude to who made them. I guess it's Reed Richards in this universe. Yeah. It's that kind of thing where they bring you this close, and you're like, oh, does your universe have some shitty, fucking annoying corporate rights deal too, that you can only have the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, and is this the Fox universe basically? Yeah. Like, you're limited to who you can have.
So my issues with the film, my main issue with the film was that it did feel a bit rushed. I think there's also, like we mentioned, there's a director's cut out there somewhere that is apparently longer, but in this movie I feel like there was a lot that could have been fixed if I had more time to breathe. Like, for example, we're talking about the start and how you don't really see much of the Defender Strange before he's killed off.
Yeah.
And you could have got a wee bit more of him. You then only spend so much time in New York before we jump into the multiverse, which I guess to drag that out, you would be a bit annoyed. You'd be like, I thought this was a multiverse movie, why are we still in New York? So I guess that's an okay amount of time. But you could spend more time, like that part at the end when he's in Evil Strange's house. I felt like Evil Strange was only, or Dark Strange or whoever else, he's only in it for really not very long at all. That felt a bit rushed. Of course, the Illuminati scene, a lot of people are saying, oh, you've wasted, Reed Richards and Professor X and Peggy Carter.
That was my thing. Are they just dead now?
In that universe, yes. And people have a problem with that because it felt like they were just kind of burning through them. But again, if you had a longer run time and you spent more time in that universe establishing them as characters rather than rather than just cannon fodder
Yeah.
for Wanda, I think it wouldn't feel like they'd been wasted as much. Just things like that. I feel the whole movie could have just benefited by a bit of more breathing room. Like it's good in a way that it's a fast pace because it keeps you engaged, but it's so fast paced that it's like we're out the next scene, we're out the next scene, and there's not really anything to kind of take it in. And I don't know. That was my kind of main issue, was just it felt a bit condensed, even though it's over 2 hours long. With how much is in that movie, it just felt a bit condensed. I feel like it could have had bit more breathing room to it.
Yeah.
So that's where my kind of main problem lies with it. But other than that, I'd probably say that's my only main negative of it. I do think they sort of. I didn't have a problem with. I don't really care about spoilers going into things. I don't really care if I know what's going to happen. So I didn't have a problem with the fact that we'd seen all the different versions of Doctor Strange that we get in this movie. We'd seen in trailers, already, and we'd seen obviously Patrick Stewart and whatever, and Peggy Carter's shield was in the poster. Like that doesn't bother me too much. But I do feel like I don't know. I feel like the whole thing could have just benefited from more breathing room. I think that is just the main issue. I think if it just had a bit more breathing room. I don't even, like you're saying, Jerd, you wanted more universes. I don't even need more multiverses. I just need maybe a bit more time spent on certain scenes in the universes we got. I think I would have appreciated it more, and it would have had more impact based on that.
I kind of thought with everyone saying about another Tobey Maguire cameo in this film, I kind of thought through the folding universes when we're kind of getting shot through them all, I thought we were maybe going to get a wee swing in the background
Me too.
of something.
Yeah.
And another major negative for me was the third eye on his head.
Yeah, the CGI for that third eye was.
I hate
And the guitar thing is very like Raimi, but it's like
the CGI in the whole movie was great, but that third eye looked so cartoony.
I hated it so much.
The end of it was, I don't know, Benedict Cumberbatch just, not to sound, look, I'm certainly no fucking oil painting, and I'm certainly no Benedict Cumberbatch, but some of the shots of him, I don't think were very flattering.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit just before, at the end of that, when he gets the eye himself.
Yeah.
And he's screaming, but his face just looks so weird, because, I don't know, he looks really puffy or something. I don't know, it's just a very... And then, the evil Strange version, without the facial hair, I thought he just looked like Ricky Gervais in that shot. It was, again, a very... kind of like, I'm battered.
There you go. We did get an extra Strange because we've seen him dying. We've seen Black Bolt killing that other Doctor Strange. We've seen you only seen 3 Stranges, but you've seen that Strange as well. So you've seen 4 Stranges actually.
Yeah. In the one other full universe we see.
Settings, you do see another.
Yeah. Another thing I had an issue with was just the... Oh, actually, it's funny because my housemate had a big issue with the first thing he said about it that he was quite disappointed with was the pacing. He felt he just didn't really get time to get into the characters that are in it. What I found was the ending scene... so the magic use I felt was great at the very start. It was it seemed to be kind of nearly in line with the stuff he was doing in Infinity War, but then at a certain point, like that just sounds kind of stupid, but the stuff you were able to see him do in Infinity War, do you really like? It's great to see him do more inventive stuff and do different stuff, but sometimes you're like, and I guess he does, but like apart from the shields and shit, you'd like to see him have more go-tos, like. Okay, I'm going to use those big fists again, or I'm going to use those snake things. As opposed to, there's an element of, it's cool to see different things, but it's nearly a little bit unbelievable that he would completely do a different thing every time. But I guess that's kind of the interesting point.
Yeah, like why wouldn't you recycle some things? Yeah.
The odd thing, yeah. But again, because that's kind of the point of having him do different stuff. But the opening, he's doing something different every 5 seconds. What's the next time we really see him use magic? Then in the Camertage, he's kind of just... He does use, like, the mirror dimension and stuff. But then he goes back to lasers and the whip and shit. All of those magicians in all of Camertage, all they can do is shields. That's all. And they've They have a like essentially just. I was like, is it magic fucking ammo in that cannon or whatever? I guess it is. Oh, Jesus, that's a fucking. Ooh, that's a strange. So let me fucking. I should have been employing those rabies shots in my fucking. Excuse me. I'm just gonna hold it there for now. Get my Xavier. I notice I unintentionally do the Xavier pose every fucking episode. So the final fight, he goes, he commands the dead bodies thing, and then he just throws in out of nowhere, oh, you have to protect me from trespassers or whatever. Because, so he gets to the suit, and then when he gets to the mountain just before Wundagore, the dead-eyed ghost soul things start attacking him. But then she goes, you're master of the mystical arts, use them. Which I thought was good, but what the fuck was he going to do prior to that? Because then that's all he uses. So he controls them, he flies over, he does like an energy blast. I'm, as much as, like, I know story is always great, but like what really gets me with these films sometimes is the use of powers and the actual action. The Wundagore kind of looked cool, but it was such a tight space that they couldn't really do anything in it. It was like basically just, it was like, it was compact, but it was on the top of a giant mountain. So they couldn't there was no space to really maneuver there. That's just kind of like a setting issue I had. I would have liked if she opened something and then they went into a bigger space inside it. But then he just throws the ghost at her and that's all he does. And then Wong uses like more force fields to hold her. That's what they do there. I didn't mind the America, what she actually did. But I kind of felt that if they made a couple of changes, so like maybe at the start, or no, maybe prior to maybe leading up to the final battle, and the final battle could have happened in the real world. I guess that doesn't really matter. But if they had an element of Wanda was chasing them through universes, and it didn't take Wanda as much work, maybe the first time it does. But maybe they just start to get less and less time for Wanda to. It takes Wanda less and less time to possess other universe versions of Wanda. You don't then, the first time, have that interest in look and stuff. Does she get like pushed back out of the first Wanda first? So she gets into her, or she tries it first. She doesn't get into her. Then the second, she comes back and she just gets into her straight away. So maybe the first time you keep all that interest in visuals of her possessing her, but then the next time she's getting in a bit quicker, and then they're jumping through universes, and they could have worked in that thing of Wanda being a constant. So you have this different Wanda showing up every time. So sometimes she's again like I know they've already kind of showed the classical costume in a jokey way in WandaVision, but every time Wanda shows up, sometimes she shows up and she's Wanda, but she's got a robot arm. Sometimes she shows up and she's Wanda and she's blue, whatever. But so then they're chasing, and then they're like, right, we have to go back to our own universe to end this, for whatever reason. I just think they could have shown in more universes, and I know it's hard for them to be like, oh, we can't have, like Spider-Man show up in every fucking shot because that's like an issue with Sony or whatever. But I guess in the comics, there's prior to House of M and Avengers Disassembled, Wanda's just able to that's more to do with her reality warping powers. She's able to just have like a Hulk, Spider-Man, and whatever attacking people, but it isn't really them. It's just like a magical construct. So maybe we could have had, and maybe that's a rights issue, but like have a CGI Hulk, have a CGI. That's where you could have had her maybe use, because I think in Loki they were supposed to have a scene of that where when they arrived to Kang or not Kang or the one before all or whatever, there was supposed to be a scene where Loki was going to have to fight like some random collection of multiversal Avengers. Like have something a bit more like that in it. I don't know, to maybe just show more universes or show more people from different universes. That I think, especially if you're going as far as to call it the Multiverse of Madness, I think you could have worked in something like that, where there was multiple possessions and they were universe jumping as opposed to just one universe.
I think the other, this isn't an issue that I had, but I think the other issue that a lot of people would have, they did kind of tease the whole thing about, oh, we're doing reshoots because we want to do more cameos. This movie,
I think that might
more
have been
significant than No Way Home, and potentially disappointing for people. It didn't bother me because I was pleasantly surprised that this was a full-on Sam Raimi horror film, so therefore I kind of knew the cameos kind of took a back seat for me. But if you went into this like, oh, this is going to be like a multiverse cameo movie, it's not really that. Like,
No.
there's really, the only one you don't officially know about is Reed Richards because all the rest are in the trailers.
Yeah.
So again, Black. But it's not like you don't see like we all thought you would see like Wolverine or a big kind of reveal cameo.
Yeah.
Never a moment like that. So I can see people being disappointed in that. I wasn't personally because I was pleasantly surprised at what we got, but I can see people being let down by the missing thing of that.
Yeah.
But that's only because of their own fan expectations. Like if you're let down by, if you build something up in your head and you're let down by it, then it's the movie is what it is. It's not.
But I think they should have called it something else. They shouldn't have called it Multiverse of Madness then. The title doesn't match the film.
I would argue it earned its title. I'd say it's a mad film, and okay, it's maybe not that many multiverse.
I don't think the madness is related to the multiverse. It's more related to Wanda's witchery, and I guess they were kind of like hiding that, but I literally just call it something different because it's not. You're calling it the Multiverse of Madness.
It should be called Multiverse and Madness instead of Madness.
Not even just. Don't call it Multiverse of Madness. It's a misleading title. It's again like I think worse so than Age of Ultron because they were like, oh, whatever, it's just Ultron. But like, it's not an age. It's like Age of Apocalypse means something in the comics. Age of Ultron because it's a time. Well, Age of Ultron in the comics is only called that because they had Age of Apocalypse and that meant something. But just literally call it something different. Because I think they went, oh, Multiverse of Madness because it sounds cool and like. They were kind of going multiversal, but like Doctor Strange and the other universe, Doctor Strange and the other universe of the house. I don't know. Just don't call it Multiverse of Madness because you're implying that there's going to be more to it. I think by that, and I don't even think that's why. Like, obviously, people are going to expect more cameos after No Way Home, and we technically did get cameos, and they were good, but just. I think they would have even been more impactful if they weren't in the trailers and they didn't call it Multiverse of Madness. It's like they called it Into the Spider-Verse, but that makes more sense because there's more Spider-Men in it. There's like 7 Spider-Men. In this, they call it Multiverse of Madness, but there is some reality stuff there, and I guess they were like kind of hyped by the multiverse, and sometimes they name these things before they've even written a script, I'm assuming, but I don't know, literally name it something different.
What I like to, even though I'm saying that it didn't really like kind of expand or like propel the whole like cameo multiverse thing, I think it did take what had came before and use it very well in creative ways. I think it did well with that. Like he took established elements and implemented them well. Like one big example that I really liked, that again I was pleasantly surprised at kind of how clever it was and how well it worked out. When Mordo is when the Illuminati building's being attacked and Mordo's really the only one left to supervise Strange when he's in the handcuffs, and Strange kind of goads him into a fight. He kind of hits him with the whole you. I bet you're glad that I died in this universe because you always wanted my job anyway, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then that's when he gets pissed off and he starts hitting him with a big sword. And then Strange manages to put one of the magic handcuffs or anti-magic handcuffs onto Mordo. And then they fall into that pit. Neither of them can use magic because they've both got one of these handcuffs on. So they have to a hand-to-hand fight. And I think that was a really creative and interesting way to get those two guys fighting, a kind of close combat choreographed scene. Because in any other scenario, they'd be standing at a distance doing this shit with their hands.
And they don't have the space.
But when you don't have that, well, shit, we actually need to choreograph a fight scene, and I found that really surprising and well. I really enjoyed that fight scene. I thought it was well acted and well choreographed, and it was just a nice wee kind of interlude from all the CGI stuff we were getting. I think that maybe just did well. It just implementing things like that have already been established, and then just kind of being creative with it.
I'd far more appreciation of that scene after watching it the second time, because I didn't. One thing that's kind of like left up in the air, even though obviously this other strange calls it, as they call it, an incursion, which is a thing from the comics where it just I don't know, I gather, I don't know exactly how it plays out in the comics. I'm aware of them where it's two universes, one of them has to die for the other one to survive, for one to survive, and I don't know, like. I haven't read Secret Wars, which I guess is where they're probably going with Marvel. I think that they probably still have a little bit up in the air. That could just be something that's mentioned and not built on, because apparently the whole Thanos thing was like, that was just an end credit thing in Avengers. It wasn't. They didn't know if that wasn't the overarching plan at that point. They were seeing, they threw it in. People were like, "Oh, what's this about?"
Water. Yeah.
But so he goads him into fighting him there. But a little bit of my head was like, oh, maybe this Mordo isn't as good as he's led to me believe here, because maybe he does want, because he's like, oh no, I straight up want to kill you now. But a really cool thing about that shot was I didn't copy, because I guess they don't fully say that he is, like, they show him trying to use magic, but obviously it doesn't work at that point, and she kind of explains it afterwards, but they never explicitly say, which they normally do in these things, where like, you can't use your magic because, but they never actually say you can't use your magic. But obviously she explains what they are and how she developed them. But when he, and I always find this with Marvel films, that when it comes down to the action, when he locks the other bracelet on Mordo, Mordo's about to stab him with the magic sword. But at the same time, now I'm just thinking, that sword has a sheath the whole way through. So it doesn't need the big sheet because it's magic. So when he puts the thing on it, it disappears.
Yeah.
So is he just like really carefully walking around? Or does I guess the magic keeps the metal there the whole time? Yeah, because it has a sheet. It's like, it would have been more interesting. It would have made a little bit more sense if he just took it out as like, I guess, lightsaber, he magics it open or whatever. But now I'm like, the thing that I was giving it a compliment for, I'm like regretting straight away. Yeah, but I just thought that was interesting too. I did kind of like that they had to have a fight there that was a bit more. Some criticism I've seen online is like, other guys I listen to is like, absolutely Marvel and DC, they fucking hated this. Like, they thought it was awful bad. And I'm seeing most people. It's weird because like you can watch one review and like you're like, okay, whatever. But I think for me, just things have been picked apart. Honestly, I really think my opinion of this entire film would be way different if they just changed the name.
Yeah,
I think that's what it spoiled down to me. That's what I was expecting.
But again, I think that's a sign of a creative movie. You know, that's more exciting. A movie that splits people rather than just a generic Marvel movie that's what you expect. I would personally prefer that. I'd prefer them to take risks, and especially like you're saying, Courtney, after Endgame now, they can afford to do that because they've had their kind of big blockbuster hurrah and their kind of finale. So now it's like, well, let's take a few chances.
Games of Bogey?
But like, if you look at No Way Home, most people like that. I don't think it was as divisive, and it probably had some maybe larger story issues.
But it fell back a lot of nostalgia though, and that's a pretty safe bet.
That,
Do you know what I mean? Like, they can
if they had, but at the same time, they gave those characters more to do. So, like, that's one thing I've seen. Another thing I've seen was just the whole Illuminati thing just took away from the main story. Because, like, it built them up and gave them time, but it didn't really use them fully. I don't know. I just, like, either have more of a universal chase, like going into different realities, or change the title. I think I'd have been much happier. And maybe just give it a little bit more, if strange, like, yes, he did the ghost through the ghost ladder, but then, like, again, just the choosing of the setting for the final battle, there was no space. Like, what else could he have done there? And I guess they've already kind of displayed that he's so powerful, or she's so powerful that there's nothing much he could have done to her. Yeah, I don't know. And then it kind of like the WandaVision, I think it kind of like, it makes the end of WandaVision not make any sense, even though it kind of didn't make sense in the first place. But they kind of said the Darkhold corrupted her, but you know they were playing WandaVision off as, oh, they don't know how what you sacrificed here, and then they're like, okay, that doesn't matter. Because
So, what if you had to rate it, Jerd? What's it sitting at in your mind? I don't know.
I was trying to think of this earlier. I think like a 6.
Really, aye.
I'd say 6.5 maybe.
What about you, Court?
I would maybe give it kind of around about an 8.
An 8. I think I'm up at a 9. The only real flaw I can find with it is that it felt a bit rushed. There wasn't quite enough breathing room in it. Other than that, I loved it. I loved every scene. I enjoyed all the universes. I didn't really feel the need. Like, I didn't feel the absence of like other universes or other versions of Strange. I was happy with the versions we got.
Too.
I loved the score. I loved the direction, the acting. Although the only other slight negative, I guess, would, like I'm saying, the kind of the jarringness of the shot composition between the kind of traditional Marvel stuff and the more kind of Sam Raimi stuff. But as you pointed out, that was actually probably on purpose. Yeah. It made you feel uneasy. So I kind of take that point back, because I was kind of at an 8 because of those 2 points. Like, it was rushed in that. But you know what? You've justified that one. So I'm sitting at a 9. It felt a bit rushed. I think if I've seen the director's cut, I might, if it's, you know, just a bit more breathing room, a bit more established, I think I would probably.
I think that's just more that it originally was for 240. Like, because when I was going to the cinema, because I was working the next morning, I was like, oh, it's down 2 hours, but I was like, I think we're all kind of okay with nearly 3 hour superhero films now. Like,
I was surprised.
That's what. Yeah, I'm surprised.
It's 2.7 or something like that.
Like Endgame, Batman, No Way Home are all at least 2.5.
I was surprised with how short it was. I thought we were going to get a longer film.
Yeah, I don't know why it was cut. Like,
I
didn't
to see it.
Because strangely, the first night I went to see, which was opening night here, apart from, I'm sure there was a midnight screening the night before. I'm pretty sure it was started at 9, and it's like the film's billed as 2 hours 7 minutes, and I was out at 7 minutes past 11. Because I think I was straight onto the group chat for those of us in the group who had seen it, and it was like 7 minutes past 11, because it's hyper aware of the time. But the second night they did show trailers and stuff. So, I think it's giving it a little bit more time. Like, I just really think, I don't know. So I think some of the shots, it felt like some of the shots were rushed, and they took some of like shots where you're like, you could have given that another. Like when Peggy character first is looking at him, she's like gleaming down at him from the thing. I was like, that's a bit cheesy. Again, it's Raimi's kind of known for being a bit cheesy, but I felt like it felt more like they were rushed on the day to shoot what they were shooting.
That was a good kind of discussion though, because it was quite good to get a bit of perspective, because obviously I really enjoyed it. I think you both really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Points that you didn't enjoy it. So I think it will split people. And on that note, if you agree or disagree, you leave a comment. Let us know if you did enjoy this film, or if you're more kind of on your side with the issues that the films had. I think we'll wrap up. Please subscribe to the Pop Shop Podcast for more episodes all through our consideration. Like and share and do all that good stuff. Yep. Thanks for joining us, Court.
Thanks
for joining us, Jerd. We are going to do another kind of Pop Shock special bonus episode in a wee second, doing our Moon Knight discussion. So when you're seeing this Doctor Strange discussion, the Moon Knight one should probably go up a couple of days later. So stay tuned for that, and then next week we'll be back with a regular episode of the Pop Shop Podcast. So cheers, all the best for now. See you in the next episode.
Bye.
Goodbye.